the thing is that they got it done. And that's a really big deal. Like just the ability to come back from a goal down away in a European fixture is a big deal. They did that. They kept their heads. They settled down. They played the game that they were sent out to play after, I don't know, what was it? The first 30 minutes were dreadful. They couldn't place a pass correctly. They were in the wrong spots. Several players looked lost. They were overwhelmed by the pressure Galatasaray was putting on them. Then they settled down. We saw vintage Busquets in the second half, whereas in the first half, we'd seen him misplace passes in what I would say is a very atypical performance. And we got all the pieces in place in the second half. I think some of that is the moves that Xavi made, including substituting in Dembele. And that I think was a really smart move. But even right before halftime, Adama had moved more centrally on some of the attacks, and that had made a difference in how we were holding on to the ball, moving the ball around, and taking control of the match. And obviously, in the first half, we had Pedri's absolutely beautiful goal to bring us back into that. But within that move, there were pieces that had been put together that they weren't putting together in the first 20 to 30 minutes of the match at all. They just weren't, that would never have worked in the first 15 minutes. Probably wouldn't have worked in the next 15 minutes. So the positives, I think, are that the team is really coalescing around the ideas that Xavi is trying to instill. They're really buying into those ideas, and they appear to understand those ideas. And I think that's a really big point for me in trying to assess Xavi's role right here and what he's brought to the club. It isn't necessarily that his ideas are that much better, although I think they are better. It's not that they're that much better. It's that he's able to communicate them that much better. He's able to say, you need to go here. I mean, Luke de Jong is a really good example for me. Under Koeman, he was not anywhere. He was just wandering in these like vague patterns of, well, maybe I should be over here now. Oh, no, I got to be over there now. And with Xavi, he knows where to go. He goes left when he's supposed to go left. He goes right when he's supposed to go right. He creates a channel. He fills a void. He does the thing that he's supposed to do. And the other players know where he's going to be, and he knows where they're going to be. And just that little bit of knowledge of what he's supposed to be doing in a given situation, I think speaks to the ability of the coaching staff, and specifically to Xavi, to be able to communicate those concepts. So that's the real positive for me, is that we're looking at a long-term solution for what has become a very big problem in the squad. In some ways, and I've talked about this on previous podcasts, not to bump up your opposition here, but that the idea being that I think that Xavi is doing something I didn't expect of him, and that is creating a foundation that we can build on. And what he's using are the pieces that were already there. I've said it before that the squad is not bad. There's not a bad squad available. This is a squad with a lot of talent. The question was whether you could get that talent to coalesce in a way that made logical sense on the field. And Xavi has been able to do that. And that's gonna mean a lot next year from the beginning. So the major positives are that Xavi was there. They actually got it done. And that, I think, yet another example of Dembele doing a very good job of playing the part he was asked to play. And he's growing into his role in a way that he simply was not in the past. He seems to, again, understand what he's supposed to be doing and when he's supposed to do it. And it's taken some of that kind of questionable decision-making out of his game, because he's no longer having to make decisions. The decisions are made for him in the approach play, in the place he's supposed to be. And he knows when he's supposed to be there and why he's supposed to be there.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good explanation as to why we are seeing the best version of Dembele we've ever seen at Barcelona. we haven't seen him. I mean, statistically, yes, he has the most assists he's ever had in a season for the club. In all those 5 years, he's been relatively healthy. It's been obviously the major part of it. But even then, when he has one poor match, which he's had maybe 2.5, 3 under Xavi, where you'd think that Dembele should have definitely done better. Yet the next match, he seems to be right back to it, because you're right. The plan is laid out for him. And more often than not, Dembele is going to be able to enact that plan because he has the skill and talent just naturally to do that. And as well as your positives, I agree. I think that's right. That the big idea here is that Barcelona, and credit to Graham Hunter, he had a great piece on ESPN.com this week about the concept he talked about. It's not a concept, it's called competing. And the fact that this team just flat out competes, regardless of the opponent, regardless of the score, they go out and they try to take care of business. And even when they're playing poorly, because after that first half, and you mentioned the first 30 minutes in particular, you're right, that Aubameyang's first touch was almost nullifying his importance on the field. And yet when the dust had settled, he scored the winner to advance Barcelona in the Europa League. And the story of the game for him should be that he got the goal he had to get, and the moment of brilliance Barcelona needed from him. I mean, not to say that goal was brilliant. It was kind of a broken play, but the fact that it was a broken play in Barca, like they've scored off throw-ins under Xavi, they've scored off corner kicks under Xavi. They just have this sense that the most important thing, as well as, playing well or playing the Barcelona style, whatever it is, it seems like Xavi is a shield to the Barcelona way, that under Xavi, the media, whoever it may be, the talking heads are always going to say that they're trying or attempting to play a certain style. And that kind of appeases whatever what was that? Those two old Muppets, the ones who would sit in the amphitheater or whatever, right? It sounds like whenever they're complaining and crying about Barcelona and the style that they have on the field, it seems to me that because Xavi is going to mean that you're playing that way, that you don't actually have to score that way. And there are times when you're not actually going to quote unquote play that way. And as long as you get a result, everyone's still going to be happy at the end of the day. So Aubameyang, I thought he was really poor, especially the first 30 minutes. Not his best game, but he got the goal that mattered, and Barcelona got the result that mattered. And same thing with Busquets. You brought that up. I just want to reiterate that I mean, he had maybe his worst 45 minutes under Xavi of the season, and yet in the second half, Barcelona settled down, and to me, the bright side is when he and De Jong, because they've actually had pretty good chemistry over the last, obviously when Barcelona are clicking, they've had really good chemistry lately. But that first half, they were a little bit too far away from each other, as it were. And the times that De Jong would go forward, he wasn't found by teammates. And it seems like the problems, and whenever De Jong does struggle, all those problems, again, it's spacing with De Jong, it's teammates being able to find when he's getting into the half space, and then where can he help defensively? Where's his rest defense? And when is he choosing to dribble forward with the ball? When is he choosing to run as the third man? And whenever you're questioning those things, as we did in the first half again yesterday, then it also settled down and he turned it around and it all worked out well. And one of the big reasons for that is I saw one or two people say that Pedri had a poor game, but for me, I say the man of the match was Pedri. I thought Pedri was not, I'm actually excluding his goal. I thought he was terrific in that match, and he was the stabilizing force. And it's crazy because he's 19, but I always have to reiterate that he was a stabilizing force to that team yesterday, where from the opening whistle to the last whistle, even if he made mistakes, even if he had one or two problems, even if he misplayed a few passes, he only misplayed 9 the whole game. He was 61 of 70 for 87%. That's exactly right. But for Pedri, for him to just be this to have the floor that he does, to say, even if he's not at his best and the team isn't clicking, Pedri's still going to give you this much of a thing that can help you come back in a game. And that's why he was my man of the match. Do you have a different idea for that, Isaiah?
No, man of the match is Pedri, and there's not even anybody else close.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't just a stabilizing force. He was a creative force too. And his goal was indicative of everything he brings to the match and to the squad, is that he understands the space in a way that we haven't had since Iniesta left. And I don't want to compare those two at all because they're very different players, but it's just this understanding of space and time that is innate. And he just has it. He has that thing, the it factor, if you will. He has it. And, you look at a guy like Gavi, the differences in there are that Gavi's an extraordinarily hard worker. He's a tenacious, like Rottweiler. And you look at a guy like Pedri, you just go, that guy's like 35, and you can see it in his face. He's been here forever. And the fact that he's 19 doesn't make any sense. He's got the knowledge of how to work in these spaces that you only get through repetition. The veterans know how to work that space like that, not a 19-year-old. And so watching him play is just such a gift. And I love watching him play. And absolutely, when he's on his game, it's over. He's just beyond anything that anybody else can really bring against him. So watching him against Galatasaray was a treat, and man of the match is seems beneath him almost. So it's cool to watch him play, and I'm so excited for his future. And Xavi seems to get him in the way that we kind of watched Xavi get Iniesta. He gets what Pedri wants and needs and provides that for him. And that's, I think, kind of the crucial thing about Busquets, that Busquets gets it too. And I know that his legs are going, he's aging out. And I think that his replacement has to be sooner rather than later, just because of the physical aspects of his position. But his intelligence is such that he makes himself hard to replace because he gets the system. He knows how the system needs to be in, where others are going to be. The predictive aspect of that is incredible. And it's easy to sort of fall into the idea that, we've reached these midfielders are very Guardiola-esque in their positioning and movement. And it's easy to sort of forget that they're very different players from the 2008, 2009 super teams. But yeah, just watching Pedri and Busquets kind of interact, and then having a guy like De Jong, who's very different from that into, that quote unquote Barcelona midfield mold, be able to work into those channels and do his forward runs that really kind of destabilize the opposition. It's just been really great to kind of watch the evolution of those guys and their positioning. And it was kind of the thing that under Valverde and Koeman, or and Setien as well, I guess, that it just sort of wasn't fully clicking. Like Valverde had a very solid set, but it was very stagnant in its way. And this is more dynamic. And Pedri fills that dynamism role perfectly, and in a way that is at 19 kind of irreplaceable. And we talk about the fact that, and I just mentioned this a few minutes ago, our squad's pretty good, and we're doing this without Ansu. We're doing this with what you could call sort of an elite attacking player sidelined long term. So if he can incorporate well, imagine how good this squad could be. And I think that's massively due to the way that the La Masia has kind of stayed true to its roots over the last few years. And then Xavi's ability to come in and communicate, here's the next level for you guys.
Yeah, I want to just add to that, the Pedri thing, that the difference between he and, unfortunately for Valverde, that he built a system with the squad that he had. And when I think about Arturo Vidal, even Rakitic and Frankie de Jong, the reasons why they don't ever get compared to Andres Iniesta, and the thing against Galatasaray in particular that I thought was so sparkling about Pedri yesterday was, and why I would compare him to Iniesta, again, the quality that I think that emits from Pedri that reminds me of Iniesta is his decision-making to understand when to release the ball into space. And that is really what unsettled Galatasaray yesterday, where he'll find that space, just like Iniesta did, the pocket in between either in between the interiors for the other team and their pivots or their defensive midfielders, or he'll pop up at other times between the defensive midfield and for Galatasaray, they were playing that double pivot and that back line, and he'll pop up in that space. And then when he turns, and he turns so well, obviously, he's so good technically with the ball, then there's either it's a decision that every player has at that juncture, where do you drive into that space, or do you choose to immediately release the pass? Do you switch the play, or do you try to play a through ball to, finally, Barcelona does have a runner like Aubameyang, who is your number 9, to be able to run in behind as well. So there are 4 to 5 different permutations that Pedri could have done on so many different junctures in that game when he would turn and be facing in between those lines. And just like Iniesta, he's making the right decisions. And making the right decisions doesn't make you a Barcelona midfielder. It makes you a very good midfielder. It makes you one of the best players usually on the field if you're able to consistently do the right thing. And his timing is impeccable in when to release the ball, again, when to switch the play. And again, that's decision making too. But for me, it's just he'll drive until it's time to release. And he knows exactly what space, he knows exactly how fast he should be going to when to release that ball, or when he needs to immediately switch the play, or when it's time to move horizontally with the ball to potentially open up a little bit of space and half space for Ferran Torres or Aubameyang to run in behind. And it's just Pedri is so smart in that way, and his technical ability allows him to do all those things.